creeks are warming up and the bass are starting to move. Let's tie some zonkers. This is one of my favorite patterns to throw, especially early season here in the spring when I'm chasing smallmouth and largemouth bass. They're starting to move, they're hungry, they're getting ready to spawn, so they're looking for a nice hearty meal, and this is there to meet them in the creek. Now, there's a lot of different ways to tie this. This just happens to be one of my favorite color variations of this, so I'm going to share it with you today. But what you'll need to start off with is Gamakatsu B10S Stinger hook. It's one of my favorite hooks. This is size 6. I use it for a lot of different things. I use it for Sam's One bug, some other topwater stuff. I also use it for most streamer patterns when I'm going to the creek. It's very effective. It's sharp. It's strong. I've never had one fail on me, so I just trust it. You can tie this in size 6. You can tie it up to, size 4, go down to size 8. Size 8, you're going to catch more panfish. Size 4, some larger fish. This is kind of like the middle ground, I feel, with the size 6. You may get an aggressive, bluegill that is trying to get it, and you may catch it, but it kind of weeds out a lot of the smaller panfish, in my opinion. Then you need a bead head for this fly. Traditionally, it's a cone head used. I actually, a lot of times, like to use a dumbbell eye, which is what I'm going to use today. This is just a small dumbbell eye painted, but I do have these copper cone heads that I use when I'm tying it sometimes as well. Then you need some rabbit strips, and I use black for this one, 1/8 inch. I have some fluorescent yellow strung marabou. And I have this sculpin flash that I picked up at Fly South. I use this quite often. It's 1 inch. It's like a wire body and kind of very similar you could make with like ice dubbing on a dubbing loop and pull off the same thing. I'm a little bit lazy, so I use this often, but when I run out of it, I'll just tie some nice flashy, I like this orange color for it, dubbing into a dubbing loop and take that forward. But quick and easy, you're going to spend $750, you can make good amount of flies with it, but pros and cons. All right, so put the hook in the vise, and then you're going to go ahead and lay down a thread base. I'm using UTC 210 denier black thread for this. Whenever I'm tying like a streamer and stuff like that, I'm going to use a heavier thread because I don't really care too much about the bulk, and I can tighten down on things that I need to tighten down harder on. Then I'm going to tie in the bead head. Now this is going to need to be a decent amount back from the eye of the hook because that rabbit strip, the leather that you're going to use to tie it in up top over the bead heads, can get a little tricky if you don't have enough space. So just do some figure 8s, making sure you need to rock it back a little bit. You can to make sure you have enough room up there. And then build up a thread dam and then go around it. Just making sure you lock that in place. Once you got that done, advance the thread back to the bend of the hook. Now, I'm going to get you a piece of your marabou. And you kind of want this to go straight back. And it just needs to be a little bit longer than the hook length. You'll lock that in there. And that really just gives a little bit of flash at the back, a little bit of a hot spot because you're using that dark rabbit. And then if it starts to slide down, just kind of cinch it back up. and make sure it's locked in. And trim the marabou. But just make sure you want it to kind of stick straight back from the hook shank. No, I don't like it curling down. Wouldn't probably make too much of a difference, but that's the aesthetic I'm going for. Then next, you're going to get one of your rabbit strips. And then you have that tail end where it comes off. And you're going to measure it just overlapping that yellow and where it goes up top. And then you're going to get in there with your scissors and snip it out. And when you cut up top, it doesn't matter if you cut some of that fur off, because I'm actually going to strip some right there. So you just have that bare leather at the top. Makes it easier to tie in. Now, you're going to find the spot where it's going to lay, and you'll take the thread back right to the beginning there. You'll peel it forth. Your finger's kind of a little moist, and you'll find that right there. Go over. Make sure it stays on top. And lock it in. Make sure you got all the fur out so that it will lay back over. Like that. So when it's wet too, that's going to go streamline back. But that's pretty good. I do like the tail typically a little bit longer. I trimmed it a little too short there, but it'll still work. And you get the idea. And you'll pull that back and you'll cut yourself off about 1.5 to 2 inches of this sculp and flash. And then I'm going to tie it in right there with the rabbit. Kind of brush it back so that you can really get right there on that wire. And wrap that in, and then advance your thread all the way to right behind the dumbbell eyes. And then you're going to start making wraps with this. And make sure it's bushy. You brush it out with your fingers. You don't want it to kind of collapse on itself. So I'm going to actually go this way. Trying to use up every bit of it. And then bring it back up top. Catch the wire. And right there, just cinch it down real tight right behind the eye. Now, get yourself a dubbing brush, and you want to kind of brush it out so that none of those fibers are trapped under your wire or under your thread. There you go. And then you can kind of see what you're working with. And then on top, just give it a haircut. Flatten that down so that the rabbit goes right over it. And then pull that. First, you advance the thread up for the dumbbell eyes. Pull this tightly over the dumbbell eyes. Hold it in place with your finger. Catch that up top. And tighten it. There's some Go. Trimmed out some of that stray flash. Do a half hitch there to hold it. Make sure it's all pressed back so you've got clear access to your eye. Then you're almost done. Go ahead and throw in a whip finish. There we go. So what you've got is a pretty buggy, pretty fishy looking zonker. It's got the rabbit, it's got that marabou, it's got that flash. If it's too much below, hit it with your scissors and kind of trim it up a little bit. Just if you're afraid it's going to get in the way of the hook for a hook set. But when it's in the water, it's going to get pushed back anyways. From when you're stripping it in, you end up with a nice looking fly. Almost looks like a oriole bird. But it's got enough of that yellow, got enough of that orange that you're really looking at something that the fish are going to go after. And it moves in the water really nicely. So pretty easy pattern. May take a little bit of time getting used to it, but it works really well. So go ahead and try that out yourself. I'll link all the materials below. And if you like this tutorial, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. Really appreciate it. And I'll catch you next time on the Whiskey Bugger.